Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective are pleased to introduce healer and featured speaker Laura Ferguson. Laura is a wife, mom, and an Air Force veteran who possesses an MBA and MA. Under her musician's name, Starseed Lolo, she writes and sings EDM, Latin, alternative, and hip-hop music. The Starseed Voice podcast focuses on ASMR sound healing. She channels on Michael Kopp's and Jennifer Taylor's podcasts. Laura also screenwrites and has won 2 honorable mentions with The Entanglement, Planet X and Mars at the Book Fest Awards, Spring 2026. Laura has also provided some of her own music in honor of Project 30, ISIS Unity Consciousness. Laura would like you to know that you can imagine and create your reality. You can manifest your dreams by taking action and following your highest passion. Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective. Thank you, Laura, for sharing your story medicine and for courageously dreaming with us. Thank you for being a dragon medicine bearer and for helping us to create safer spaces to give and receive our story medicine. One of the best ways to heal is with the earth, and that's exactly what we do with each other. Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective are honored to welcome healer and featured speaker Laura Ferguson.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Ferguson. That is my true name and my author name. Starseed Lolo is my musician name. How are you all doing today on Saturday, or if you're rewatching? Go ahead and drop comments in the chat. We have some moderators here. Really happy to be here. Very excited to be part of the Dragon Dream Collective. I was graciously invited by Miss Gina to make a song and an introduction video. The song The Dragon is going to be featured. So I will actually be playing that a little bit and then doing a sound healing here. So let's go.
In the shadow of the mountainside, where the ancient spirits like to hide, I feel the chill of a ghostly breath, dancing on the edge of life and death. The train walks in the thousand lights. I Whispers echo through the hollow house. Ghostly figures leaning against the wall. They tell the tales of a fire emblem, a kingdom built on a dragon's stone. A mighty watching as the embers start to grow. Through the smoke and through the fire, rising higher, rising higher, rising higher to me, wings of shadow. Calling out the ancient name, calling out the ancient name. The dragon flies, a spirit cries beneath the dark and heavy sky. Eternal star, truly
That is the dragon. And just do a little bit of meditative music. It's more comfortable for you to lie back, close your eyes, please do so. Dancing 520 minutes. This is called Lola's Meditation Number 1. It's a song made by myself, non-AI generated. I'm proud about that. And also Life Giver made it. He's my friend from Band Lab. You shift to the reality which you prefer with your frequency, your mind, thoughts, your beliefs. So which reality do you prefer? Are you going to take the higher road or the not so higher road? Let's clear some of this to get rid of what no longer serves us. I am a reflection of you. You are the reflection of me. Apologize. I was whispering. What is your story? You're the creator of your story. You shift anyway. Therefore, shift to the story which you prefer. By keeping your frequency high from moment to moment to moment to everlasting moment. It's your story. It's your story. What does that sound? No? All right. 2 and 4. Energy is neutral to neutral positive. Therefore, we define it. Not only do we define it, we create it because we are all portals. We are all portals of our own realities. We also have a collective reality experience as reflections. Which reflection do you prefer? There's nothing outside of us. Only source. There is no such thing as good and bad. Only neutral to neutral positive energy, which we give definitions to. We are going to close it now. Take a few moments of silence before we go on to the next part. Take some deep breaths to your liking and cadence. 4 count in, 4 count holding, and quick releases. Push out what no longer serves you. Push that out. Your higher self tells your body self, this is not me. Therefore, push it out. And that we're pushing out quickly, let's push out slowly. Do quick breaths in, hold it for 4 seconds, and slow breath out. Let's do a couple more. It's all of your body. Thank you for listening. Apologize for any audio technicalities. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what I call the Starseed template. Now, if you have any issues hearing me, please let me know in the chat. Would be happy to adjust either louder or quieter. Okay, great. I apologize if it was a little faint during the sound healing, since I'm actually moving my hands and doing instruments and whatnot. The microphone has to be kind of slanted on the side. So the Starseed template, what is it? It's just my story, my version of spiritual awakening. When did it start? For me, it started circa January, February 2021, leading into, our C word. I won't say it, but it was literally, a couple weeks, days, even a day or two before that. And I was turning 39 that year, I believe. So I was 38. My birthday's in May. And I noticed that crows were following me everywhere. And I'm like, what is this? Is this like, is this something going on here? But it didn't just happen like once. I lived in Sacramento, California at the time. Now I live in Northern Florida, but I would go to lunch. There was a crow. I would park my car. There was a crow. I'd walk across the street to the parking meter. There was a crow. I'm in downtown area in the capital, California. And, every 2 hours, moving my car with the parking meter. And 99% of the time I was alone during this time. I wasn't walking with a coworker or a friend or anything. And so crows. And then I tell myself, so the crows are always there. What's different now? And then I realize I'm different. How am I different? So what happens? I actually call the nurse and talk to the nurse. I'm like, am I having like female stuff going on? My face was like 10 times redder than what it is right now and highly flushed. I was actually like, it wasn't an anxiety attack because I'm a military veteran and I know about that. It was like a wave of energy that my body couldn't process, but didn't know how to process, like almost like putting like new information in a computer because we're basically quantum computers. So yeah, I love crows too. And, and this is why. And so I'll chat about that. Thank you, Missy. So I actually even tell one of my doctors at the VA and I'm like, I think I'm having a spiritual awakening, because crows keep coming to me and she didn't even bat an eyelash. So rewind a little bit. I'm sitting there one day on Highway 5, which is a big highway in California, and like gridlock traffic, and the crows have been, we're hanging around in little murder groups, here and there. And for a couple weeks now, and now it's like, I want to say early February, and right before things started shutting down a lot, first week of February. And yeah, they are messengers, Michael. And I just hear like this loud noise, like it almost sounds like screaming and a vibration through my windows and, going onto the highway. And then I roll down my window and I'm like, Laura, roll down your window, just see what it is. You're sitting here in traffic anyway. And I look, thousands of crows. And I mean, like, these are thousands of them. Like, and Sacramento is called the city of trees because it is. It's said to have had more trees in like Paris, France, or number 2 in the world or something. And, beautiful. It used to be a lot of redwoods where they were cut down, still in the Bay Area, but, mostly a lot of sycamore trees, oak trees, some redwoods. And it's just crows, and they are all screaming at me. And what do they tell me? Clairvoyantly, they told me, you are having a spiritual awakening. And I'm like, and so fast forward back to the discussion with the doctor. Crows kept following me. And then I just knew that I was having a spiritual awakening. I didn't tell her the crows told me that because, you don't want to tell that. Yeah, murder of crows, right? Sparrow sister. You don't want to tell that to a doctor. But I said, I just knew because of the crows. And okay, fine. So, and then, the crows are they have way more symbology. I start going down a rabbit hole, start watching this, Gaia TV channel. And, I had already been watching Ancient Aliens and, for years prior and showed that to my mom and stuff like that. And I actually thought back to watching Ancient Aliens, years prior. I don't even know when this 2021. So this might be like 2010 or 2015, somewhere in there. And maybe even right after that. And, I was sitting on the couch, just kind of playing Ancient Aliens in the background. And I thought about this. The crows came, and I'm an accountant by trade, and I'm an accounting major. So I love sacred geometry and just, math is our universal language. And so whatever on my phone. And then all of a sudden, Ancient Alien says, the sun is 400 times in distance and in size to create a perfect eclipse with the moon. No other sun moon combination, what is it, Jupiter and Saturn have like hundreds of moons between them, can do that. And I created statistics for a living, advanced statistics with an economist on cases and stuff. You know, my work was basically by hand. Theirs was all, you know, fancy formulas because I'm an accountant, not an economist. But, you know, I stopped at my phone and I was like shocked with like my mouth open. I'm like, the moon is 400 times in length and size to create a perfect eclipse. Statistically, that is nearly impossible. And that might even be less of a chance than us getting hit by a near Earth object in like 5 minutes. It might be. I'd have to do the calculations. So anyways, I knew at that moment, and thinking back on that moment, that there is a divine source, whatever you want to call it, that is the universe, that is all of us. All of us. We are all parts of it. Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, gray, white, purple, every color of the rainbow on the spectrum, and not on the spectrum that we know of in other realities. There's parallel realities. It's infinite energy. And so fast forward back to the moment with the crows, I started watching a man named Robert Edward Grant, and this was probably going into summer now, 2021, you know, instead of commuting every day and, you know, going an hour each way to go 21 miles in California and sometimes over an hour, I was, you know, only going to the office one day a week, and I had to see my family. Great. I had a toddler at the time. I had more time to watch Gaia and actually, you know, have 3 hours a day not commuting. So anyway, I was like, oh, let me go to this webinar, this Robert Edward Grant guy. You know, he's brilliant. He's a polymath. He has an MBA as well. He was a former CEO of, I believe, pharmaceutical company. But anyways, you know, he's doing these webinars, like, you know, like 10 base math versus 12 base math and all this, you know, stuff I'm nerding out on. And I'm like, I wish he was on Gaia TV. Like, he needs to be on Gaia TV. Like, I might have even written Gaia TV an email. The email, oh yeah, see the comments. Earth relation to the moon was officially placed by that precise math by someone who was very intelligent. Yes, there's a comment from Eric S3333, and he says that the Earth with the ratio, the moon and the distance, which is basically statistically impossible for one of them to happen, and like such a small chance for both. Yes, the moon was placed there, and this is something that I had realized and heard and resonated with me, and still resonates with me, that the moon was placed there upon, you know, the Atlantis destruction and that kind of thing happening. And I don't get into the moon in my book because that's the after part of it. And my book is actually the destruction of it. It goes into Mars, Tiamat, and Earth. You are absolutely on it, Eric. And a lot of people in this community are with the moon being placed there, meaning that it wasn't the original, you know, Tiamat was the original, and the poles shifted and everything, and even the water went up over 100 feet, which scientists actually admit to that part, surprisingly. Mars used to have water. Actually, Mars still has water in its poles. It can be terraformed with high technology. Mars has a signature of radiation on it that is only from something like an atom bomb. You know, NASA science channels have admitted to things like that. I talk about that a little bit in my book at the end of the chapter, just to get people thinking, you know, in their head, to question. And, you know, I believe it's the science channel that says question everything. And, you know, all perspectives are valid because your reality and my reality are two different realities. However, we are also a collective and connected in every way. So we get both. We get a duality actually of a collective experience and an individual experience. So, okay, Eric, are you an accountant too? You wrestle with base 12 versus base 10. So, okay, so I'm sitting here watching Robert Edward Grant. I'm like, this guy's brilliant. Like, he's like some kind of math genius. Okay. And, well, okay, so fast forward like early 2022. So, of course, I'm doing my binge watching of Gaia. And lo and behold, a new show is coming out, Code X, I think like the codex of like the Mayan books and stuff like that, ancient texts with Robert Edward Grant. And I'm like, I look at the TV and I'm like, is somebody playing a joke on me here? Like got the crows, and then I start seeing all these synchronicities because I'm the type of person that loves feedback. So I ask my higher self source to give me feedback. And sometimes these synchronicities are like 5 times a day. Like I'm like writing books, early 2023, I started writing children's books, conscious kid books about my son, Zane. And, I found a little meditation books, and then I wrote a sacred geometry one later. Fast forward, Robert Edward Grant has this codex show. It's brilliant. Someone who's a polymath or mathematician or accountant, even an engineer, that kind can, or scientist, or, I have a science degree, believe it or not. My accounting degree is science, but we can appreciate stuff like that. And even if you're not, you could still appreciate it. So brilliant show. Highly recommend it. There's a lot of free episodes on YouTube now. He's not sponsoring me or us, just throwing it out there. So anyway, I said, I'm interviewing authors, which got me going on my own book and I believe gave me the energy to write books, kids books, children's books, conscious kids books, which I won awards for at Bookfest out of Los Angeles. And second and first place. I was not expecting second place my first time around. Either way, I messaged Robert Grant on Instagram, and apparently he's manning his own Instagram because he agrees to have an interview with me. And I don't know why he agrees, other than it's just, it's meant to be. So I scheduled it with his assistant, and let's just say I came after Danica Patrick, and I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to follow on be Danica Patrick? And I'm like, like freaking out, still getting used to, the whole Zoom thing. Fortunately, because of work, I got used to Zoom meetings. I used to have anxiety attacks and like run away and like leave. And then people called me out on it and said, why are you leaving? And I'm like, oh, I get nervous and I go to the bathroom. That was the nervous part, was mostly the true part. But anyway, I interviewed Robert Edward Grant, and we nerd out, and I asked him, is math-based 12 versus math-based 10 just better in general because cosmic agency and the Pleiadian Theatis, and they explain the technology with the dodecahedron and, like the whole 12-dimensional earth plane and that kind of thing. And anyway, he goes into, his math nerd stuff. And then my favorite question and answer, which I can't even mimic because he goes off in a mathematical explanation. I do ask him about the moon ratio and basically that it's almost statistically impossible about the moon and the earth and, the 400 in size and in distance to have a perfect eclipse. And that'll, that it's basically imply that it's placed there. And it wasn't natural, naturally formed during the time of everything else. Anyway, my favorite question is, I just tell him something to the effect of, I have a feeling, Robert, that we are missing elements from the periodic table. And this is just coming from me. I don't have proof of it or anything. I just feel like we are missing, elements from the periodic table. We just are. And he's like, yes, we are. And I calculated that I have calculated that we're missing at least 18 elements. And then he goes off in like a whole mathematical, explanation. And he's going off on a tangent at this point for like 49 minutes, just answering that question. And so it was just awesome. And and in my next books with the Orion Wars, I'm going to go into the moon a lot more because, it's our moon, and in place of Tiamat, we needed something to stabilize the earth. And it does do that beautifully in the moon cycle, the moon calendars, which I've channeled and spoke about. 28-day calendar is actually what we are supposed to be following, not the Julian. And so the precession of basically the horoscopes and stuff are really, I believe they're off like 70 degrees or something. Like it's a huge amount. And so I really like to follow true sidereal astrology because it's the stars as they are, not seasonal, and it does account for that difference. So either way, just be aware of that. And I'm still a Taurus in both Western and in true sidereal. So sometimes your sign can change because of that difference if you look it up in the true sidereal versus the spring and seasonal type. So yeah, it's really interesting. Oh, arts, Bachelor of Arts. Oh, okay. Thank you, Michael, too. Thank you for saying that on the book awards. And so I realize, bottom line, this is not really unique, the spiritual awakening, right? It's not. It's just, yeah, my version of it is unique to me, but the experience, just that it's happening is not unique. This happens to everyone. It happens to you. It happens to me. It happens even to little kids. It happens to elderly. It doesn't matter at any point in your life. And the establishment will call it what they call it. So it's a midlife crisis. It's a, teenage angst. It's, being lonely at the end of your life. You're elderly or you're retired or something like that, and so it's not that. All of these labels, I mean, it can be what you want it to be. It's not that. It's a spiritual awakening. And Dr. Carl Jung, the great doctor who was around in the early 1900s in Europe, and I believe he was a psychologist and a psychiatrist, he spoke about dark night of the soul. Okay. And in Latin, the negredo stage, which is dark, or negro in Spanish, is the dark stage, which we call depression. And when you have this kind of thing happening, it is the first stage of awakening, and you have the highest potential to propel, because, that's just how energy works. And you feel like you're down here, but your trajectory has the highest potential to shoot up higher and higher. And so one day I was watching Robert Edward Grant's show, and I don't remember which episode, on Codex. And, I'm just on my phone, got it in the background or whatever. And I hear him say, the crows wouldn't stop coming. They wouldn't stop coming. And this is the negredo stage as described by Dr. Carl Jung, the great Carl Jung. The negredo stage is the first stage of awakening. And da-da-da-da. And actually, I don't remember the stages of awakening after that, because this one was so important. But I was shocked. I think I dropped my phone and opened my mouth. I'm like, he's describing exactly my experience of how I realized I was awakening. I always was. The crows were always there, but this is my divine timing at age, 38 going on 39, mere days before the sea shut down everything. And I was just shocked. And I just knew that I had to interview him. And that's just, sorry to rewind and put it out of timeline. But that's how it happened. And so, the crows are very important. And I went and got a DNA test. My dad is from Mexico. My mom's from Oregon, and European background. And I wanted to see how much Native American do I have? I'm about 29-30%, the Aztec, Mayan, a little bit of South American. And it's funny because whenever I get a reading from someone, whether it's a friend or, just a psychic who's not necessarily a friend, they always say that the Indians are with you, or the natives are with you, or, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm 60% European too, and a little, North African. Like, what about all these other ancestors? And it's just, I realized that my higher self told me that the ant people, via my indigenous side, were the ones that were the messengers that I chose in this, iteration of me. And so that's just, it's just really crazy. And so everyone's story is unique. And I love how Story Species Medicine, Gina, the Dragon Dreamers, Soul Tribe, how we all are supportive of each other. And it is about community, because we are all going through this. And this is not anything special or even out of the ordinary. Even a doctor didn't bat her eyelashes when I told her that somehow the crows sent me a message and told me I'm having an awakening. And it's just, it's not a midlife crisis. It's not a nervous breakdown. It's a spiritual awakening. It doesn't matter what happens. It matters what you do with it. It matters how you use the energy. That's what matters the most. So where do we go from here? Every single day, we have a choice. Every moment to moment to moment, in every playing second, we are shifting. We are recreating our reality, because I listen to Bashar a lot, channeled by Daryl Anka, and I love Bashar. Do I agree with 100% what he says? No. Do I agree with 100% of what anybody says? No. Are we allowed to change our minds? Yes, we are. Do we have to agree with everyone? When I'm channeling, I have felt this message very strongly, you know, in our culture, even just as humans, we have something where I don't agree with you. And, you know, surprisingly, even with the channeling, a lot of people have been very positive or neutral in the chats. And there surprisingly hasn't been, you know, here we are channeling aliens, and there hasn't been any crazy comments. There's been, like, I think there was one who said, oh, all the mothers wouldn't agree with that because there was a question about divine feminine energy. First of all, I'm a mother. So, and I like to focus on being balanced on the masculine and the feminine. So I guess that person assumed I wasn't a mother. So anyway, you know, it's just, you know, so a lot of times when I'm channeling, I'll have the statement that it doesn't matter if we agree or we don't, all perspectives are valid. And I even say that in my book, The Entanglement, Planet X and Mars, that in the last chapter, all perspectives are valid. I do believe that, and I feel that. For me, it's a fact. However, might not be a fact for you. So it's probably really a belief, but all perspectives are valid. So what does that mean? That means that it's okay. We don't have to agree. So let's not focus on that. If there's a part that you don't agree with, we don't have to. It's fine. You know, let's move on with our lives. And if the message isn't for you, or that portion of the message is for you, that's fine as well. It's all, you know, it's all good. You know, whatever helps to keep your frequency to the point where you are manifesting continually, choosing, following your highest passion. When you follow your highest passion, you get that whole kit that comes with it. You know it's your highest passion because it feels good and it's what you love. What you love is what you almost or literally jump out of bed for in the morning. I love to make this song. I'm going to get up. I'm going to write it. I'm going to practice. I love to do art. I'm going to get up. I'm going to do it. I love to write books. I love to produce videos. And, you know, I'm giving performing arts because the performing arts for me is a direct creation that you are channeling right now. Everybody is channeling this human experience. We all are. And Bashar says we are in the afterworld, afterlife right now. And the true world is when you go to the other side. I wholeheartedly feel that. Think about it. Anything that lasts forever is not temporary, such as our bodies or a building crumbling, physical reality in general. However, our essence, our soul, ourselves as source, it's infinite. Infinite is infinite. It was never born and can never be destroyed. However, the experience is real. Physicality is not real. The experience is real. Does that make sense? Yeah. Michael says, follow your resonance and passion. Yeah. Yeah. Following. What's your passion? I want to know. What is your passion? Moment to moment to moment. It doesn't have to be a monumental, oh, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to change my house. I'm going to change where I live. I'm going to change my career. I'm going to go to work and, you know, not have a plan and like just say, give them the middle finger and say, F you, I'm out. You know, like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying moment to moment to moment. You can even make cleaning fun. You can even make what seems to be a mundane task of, you know, driving to the store 30 minutes fun, or even being in traffic. You know, now I live remote with my family here in Northern Florida. So everything is 30 minutes or 15 up to 59 miles away, an hour away. And so, you know, yeah, there's no traffic, but it's barren out here, you know, beautiful, but barren. And so I have started practicing my singing live while I'm driving. And there's certain apps that won't allow that, but then there's certain apps that do. And I can even do a virtual background. And so, or I can just show a video of it. And so that's how I've utilized that time, because sometimes I'm thinking to myself, you know, try not to think negative, Laura, okay, or my nickname Lolo, come on, Lolo, you know, like get with the program, do something to raise your vibes. What raises my vibes? A, moving my body. B, singing. C, in any kind of creation mode that I'm at. Of course, spending time with my family, kids, spouse, that kind of thing. If I'm alone and they're gone during the day, school or work or whatnot, you know, I'm basically retired and from office work in Florida. Fortunately, that's not as expensive as California, and I do have time to do the creative things that I do: write movie scripts, write books, sing. And there's days that I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling to go inside there in the office and, sit here on this microphone and re-sing a piece of a song 20 times in a row. And those other times I am feeling it. So what is your passion? What is your passion? What do you love to do to keep your frequency high and basically shift to the reality which you prefer? Think about it. What do you love to do? It doesn't matter if you do it at midnight, no one else is around. It doesn't matter if you do it during the day. It doesn't matter if you're doing it while you're working. What do you love to do? Terry said he made up a song in an MRI machine because you didn't like that experience. Terry, I am very claustrophobic. So you are better than me because you are very clever. I told them no. They had to scan me in an open nuclear scan instead. I said, put me to sleep, and they refused to do that. So I'm glad you did that. You don't drive anymore, Sparrow's sister said. Yeah. So bottom line, follow your passion. Anything that you think might be weird or something that's happening to you. Sometimes, like I said, I see synchronicities. I ask my higher self, if you want to call them guides too, on top of the higher self, my oversoul, I ask them for signs. Sometimes I get them 5 times a day. I'll be sitting there writing a book and an uncommon word will come up. It's not the, and, I, you. Uncommon word will come up and literally 5 seconds later it'll play on YouTube on the TV. And I'll be writing another word, another uncommon word will come up and it'll come up 10 seconds later on the TV. And then I'll be texting and then the word for, F-O-R, and then it's set in the TV within 2 seconds. Sometimes that'll happen 5 times a day. And other times it'll be a sign that I'm driving by on the road. I believe I was going live or something and I said the word, I heard the word teacher on YouTube with Bashar speaking. I drove past it's not common, drove past a sign that said teach crossing or something. And it's like, you can't make these things up. You can't make these things up. We are source of source. What do we do with it? Our jobs, our purpose is to be ourselves, no matter what. Be ourselves. Be yourself. Your purpose is to be yourself. That's it. However that looks. Follow your highest passion in every moment. Doesn't have to be a monumental task. It can be anything from what you want to eat. Do you want to sleep? Anything, even a small choice. That's it. That's it. We're almost done with this segment. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go into a Q&A in about a minute. If anyone has any questions, I want you to know that bottom line, you're not alone. You're not alone. If you're going through this Negredo stage, I actually wrote a song called Dark Night of the Soul, which is in the mini movie at the end. Stay tuned for that. The mini movies I have not seen. And so I'm really excited about seeing them because one of the songs in it is Dark Night of the Soul. I wrote Dark Night of the Soul because of the crows and because it's all of us. The energy is all of us. We're all having a spiritual awakening. We chose to, in this version of ourselves and this experience of ourselves. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing because the Dark Night of the Soul is a positive thing. And it brings us to us.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing your story medicine with us today. I wrote down lots of notes here. So many powerful things that you said. And what a great way to end the presentation. Emphasis on being yourself, doing what brings you joy, all of those things that you said. And speaking of synchronicity, the way you ended your presentation was essentially how you started it because you were with your meditation that you provided for us, the sound healing, you were saying something about neutral positive energy that we give definitions to. We get to decide. And it reminded me about something I'm always saying, that feeling scared and feeling excited are the same feeling, but we get to decide. And so I appreciate how you were reiterating taking that ownership of your life, the alchemy of it. So I know I've got my notes and questions. If anybody in the chat has questions for Laura, put them in. We don't have to go on our break until 10:50. So we've got a nice little chunk of time here. So we have a choice. I love that. What else did I write here? Crows everywhere. You know, I love crows, but honestly, when you see anything in great numbers, it can be a little bit spooky, right? And so bring us back to that day where you started seeing like a whole murder of crows and they're just like hanging around looking at you. Like, did you feel somewhat creeped out? Like, I know this was the beginning of it all, but tell us a little bit more about that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was a scene like the Birds movie, you know, and I don't think I've actually even seen that full on movie, but you know, that's an old school movie, like from the 50s or something, right? And it was literally like that scene, like the birds, and I'm like, I mean, thousands of them flying overhead and thousands in the trees, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then, you know, I started asking people about it. Where are all these crows coming from? Were they always there? And you know, Sacramento area has a lot of even like marshy areas and wildlife protected areas. And so even though it's to over 2 million people in the county area. And so, but they, you know, they fly in from, you know, all the wetlands nearby and the farmlands. And I'm like, but they were always there and I just didn't notice them. And so, you know, it was, maybe I wasn't ready to see them. It wasn't my time yet to see them, but yeah, it was, just think of like the Birds movie and, you know, got thousands of them flying overhead, thousands in the trees. And then you have little murder groups following you around, hopping around. And, you know, and then even when I was in Sedona a couple of years after that, in, you know, one of the Boynton Canyon Vortex or, you know, Kachina Woman, I don't remember which one. And of course I heard crows, you know, in there. And I'm like, why are crows in here? You know, this is Arizona. I'm sure they have some, but, you know, so it's just funny.
And a question here from the chat. Did the Crow series make you wonder or impact you as you saw the crows? Like, I feel like you just kind of answered that, but yeah, you really don't know how many are out there until they start congregating together. And that's the thing about nature and working with spirit, is that it can be scary, it can be intimidating, and it's worth it to notice that. And Michael's just commenting here, Birds by Alfred Hitchcock is a great movie and cool scare effect. Yeah, the movie that Laura was talking about birds, I don't know if that's the same movie, but yeah. I've never watched the whole thing because in my childhood, that movie and Arachnophobia were big hits. And I just remember thinking, this is like a scary movie. I can't handle this. I got more questions here for you. Yep. You mentioned anxiety. Me too. When I have anxiety, I got to go to the bathroom, get out of my way. It's coming out. But usually I'm aware when I have that kind of anxiety and I stay home. But how do you overcome anxiety? Like, do you just know, I got to go to the bathroom, let it out, and then it's over? Or do you have to, on the spot, do some mindful meditation? What happens when you notice your anxiety is amping up and you're out in public?
Well, you know, as a PTSD veteran, my first inkling is to leave because, you know, I don't want to be like huffing and puffing, getting an asthma attack or, you know, crying in public, that kind of thing. So you're right. Generally, I will go to the bathroom because that's a private place. Take care of what I have to take care of. Fine. If I have to use it when I'm there, great. If not, just count to 100 and stuff. And, you know, kind of like, because I don't do well in large crowds, that kind of thing. I am short, about 5'2.5". So I'm because of my height, I get stepped on a lot and, you know, that kind of thing. And so for me, in more recent years, I will tell myself like mantras, you know, like now is not forever. Now is not forever. Now is not forever. And no, I don't have enough courage to get through an MRI because I'm claustrophobic. That's not going to change. And which in a QHHT session, I found out is from having a life as a sea captain and men being trapped under the ships and whatnot. So anyway, but I'm also scared of heights. You know, I'm a scaredy cat in general. Like I'll ride a roller coaster here and there and all that. But, you know, I was never an adrenaline junkie in that way. So I get my adrenaline rush in other ways that are, as I see, physically safe. And so I hope that helps. But, you know, the mantra, like now is not forever. We're all of source. Everything is meant to be as it is. We all have free will. We have the choice, those kind of mantras, because it's a lot of it is about trusting that, everything is meant to be how it is. And can we shift to a reality that is which we prefer, which we don't? Yes, we can. However, the reality which you are in now and the experience you're in now is what is meant to be. And so for me, trusting that is something that I'm working on, if that helps.
Yes, that does help. And I hear you on the mantras. Like, there's so many beautiful mantras out there. I mean, half the battle is remembering them, right? And usually they're not even in English. So Michael's here has a question. How was channeling, writing music, writing books, how did that help heal your soul and change any patterns?
I'm a different person. If you met me, 2023, I started writing. 2024-ish, I started doing music. If you met me before that, you would have known me as an angry person in a bad mood, not wanting to speak to people, or I would just go mute. Like, I literally went mute one time for 7 months when I was having a dark night of the soul. And so it has literally changed my reality. Even my pictures, looking at my face, I believe I look younger now than I did 5 years ago, because my energy is so much lighter and brighter by following my passions. Even though I was doing them while working my office job and then now I'm not, I've eventually created a space and reality where I can do what I want full time. And so it has literally flipped my life from, not being in which I prefer, doing a career which I do not prefer, although it provided well for me and my family, and easing my way on this track into a few years of doing which I do prefer 100% of the time.
Wow, that's very insightful. Something else that caught my attention was the emphasis on mental health stigmas. Me too. I love Carl Jung, and when I think about him, he was way ahead of his time. Like, even if he was still alive today, he would still be way ahead of his time. And I know when I had my own spiritual awakening, it was pure hell. It was a total mental health breakdown, meltdown that I was experiencing. And I imagine, how could that have been differently handled if I had a psychologist and psychiatrist who recognized this kind of stuff and instead could say to me, hey, you know what? You're having a spiritual awakening. You're not losing your mind. How you think and feel matters to the point that it creates a chemical reaction in your body. Like, nobody talked to me about any of that. I was basically made to feel like, oh, this is some pattern I need to break, and telling somebody with mental health issues or somebody who's struggling with depression to like snap out of it, to me, that would be like telling somebody with cancer to snap out of their cancer. It doesn't work that way. So I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing this about yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit more about just like the mental health stigmas when you recognized, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not having a mental health stigma. This is me going through life and having a spiritual awakening. Like, at what part did you have to assert that? And did you have support from professionals? I know I just threw a lot there at you, but any insight about that, mental health stigmas?
Yeah. And being a veteran, I have a lot more support available to me than other people who are not veterans, and even was in like a group counseling about MST, which is military sexual trauma and that kind of thing, and individual counseling. And the VA even like sent me like an alpha stimulator device, which is like very small electrode treatment. And so I was literally trying everything other than getting a bunch of readings from other people, because it's a reflection of a reading. And a lot of people will say, oh, this psychic isn't accurate, or this medium isn't accurate, or this reader is not accurate, or this healer isn't accurate. That's not the thing. What they are reading is energy from an infinite version of you in that space. And so in that moment, they're reading something accurate. It's just up to you and your frequency, which one you shift to and how it happens. That's why that's why a lot of readers don't like to give a timeline, so to speak. And as to how I dealt with it, like I said, I tried a lot of different things, and was seeking more natural remedies because I turned vegan. You know, I only eat meat a couple times a month. That was part of my spiritual awakening for me. I have family members that eat meat, and I don't shame them, you know, because that's their path. There's 2 of us in the house that don't eat meat and 2 of us that do. And the boys eat meat and the girls don't. That's just the way it is. And so like the taste of meat physically, I just started, you know, repelling from my body in 2018. And eventually I'll still eat like shrimp, like a little bit of seafood here and there. I'm from San Diego. So, and I live by beach, hour away from a beach. So, you know, I still love seafood. But, you know, I don't shame anyone on their path of that. I know there's a lot of extremists out there that will, you know, say something, I will only date a vegan and this and that. I think that who you love is who you love, and that we should be supportive to others. And if you're a carnivore and I'm a vegan, I can still support you. It doesn't mean that I have to go eat meat and change myself. What else did you ask, Gina? Because that was like a fully loaded question.
Yeah, there was a lot. No, you answered that very great. And something powerful you mentioned was that you had support, and not everybody has that support. So if somebody out there is listening, recognize, you know, like even Laura, somebody who has military background, who had group support and other special privileges that other people do not, still going through dark night of the soul. So this is very normal. Okay. Is it easy? No. Is Laura's life perfect now? No. But this is how we transform the traumas into treasures. And you know what? There's a time and a place for transformational healing. But like Laura was describing, when you can belong to a group where you just share your medicine, talk therapy, story medicine, that's where it's all about, you know. And talk therapy can become a poisonous ritual routine because people get stuck in their stories. Why? Because it's familiar. It makes them feel safe. And at one point in Laura's presentation, she talked about frustrations about how when you're going through these dark night of the soul experiences, we tend to be very down energetically, very down in the dumps. And yet on a scientific level, duality, we must fall in order to rise, literally like we're these beach balls bouncing up and down. And when we rise, it's like, well, oh no, am I going to fall again soon? And it's like the answer is yes, you will, because at some point, just like Laura mentioned earlier in her presentation, we alchemize. So nothing is permanent. So we're always this ball rolling. We're always falling down, rising above, falling down again, rising above again. We do fall down again. We do rise above again. But the point is if we can live consciously, then we can take charge of our lives. And this is very much keeps coming up in Laura's presentation. Laura, you published a children's book pretty much about your son. And it sounds like the book is targeted for parents and teachers and also little ones who are having these spiritual awakenings, who are maybe growing up a little bit, not growing up too fast, but they're like wise and well beyond their years. And if you have a child like this, it might throw you off, you know? So what advice, tips, and tricks do you have for parents who might have a child like yours? And tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote.
Yeah, so it's actually a series. There's a few of them. The first one is Conscious Kid Adventures with Zane, Imagine and Create. Imagine and Create is about Zane, you know, and it's fiction because it shows him growing up and he was only a toddler there, but it shows how he can utilize meditation to actually help him even pass tests, get better grades in school. And he'll go and he'll like do like a quick meditation, even like 30 seconds. And he'll just like, you know, like close his eyes and just calm out, you know, meaning like basically like clear his mind, think about nothing because, you know, there's just so much to think about, you know, busy little minds. And so, and then lo and behold, he did well on the test, got 100%. And then when he didn't do that, he didn't do as well and missed a few, you know, answers. And it even helped him play sports better. And so it was like a superpower that he could tap into and showing that anyone could tap into. And I just use meditation because it's something that you can do easily, you know, on a moment's notice, preferably private space, but it doesn't have to be. And it's accessible, it's free. And, you know, it's even, and it's funny because he was 5 then and he's like, look, Mom, I'm meditating. And then of course he can only sit still, you know, for like 30 seconds. And, you know, that's how it starts. And so, hopefully as an adult, he still does that. And it's like 30 minutes or something, but you get to the point. And it's led into him asking questions and all that. And I'm not a child psychologist. I'm not a teacher by any means. I actually had one of my friends write the epilogue of the book, of the first Sane book. She was a student. I think she was a substitute teacher, but she was also a counselor, certified counselor at a children's school in Anaheim, LA area. And so I had her write that in the front of the book and, speak about mindfulness of children, and that it's helps their learning and helps their development. And so I thought that was important. And on my second book, it was about sacred geometry. Of course, this was after I interviewed with Robert Edward Grant. This one got first place, and this one is called Confiscated Adventures with Zane, Geometric Universe. And in this one, it's an adventure story, but this is my favorite one actually, because he goes into outer space. And so he actually is meditating and he's using his imagination, and it's, has a whole adventure in space. He meets an alien, an ant person. Of course, I love the ant people because they're connected to my indigenous side. And so he meets the ant person. He goes and finds a golden key. He goes through a portal and he comes back out of the portal. And then he wakes up out of meditation, fully, because our mind's like in like this theta state, like almost asleep. And he tells his mom, "Hey, Mom, I went on this, adventure." And so that one was definitely inspired by just sacred geometry, Robert Edward Grant, that kind of thing. And I need to send a copy to him in the mail. I think I can send it to his corporate office. But either way, those are the Zane books. And then in the first book with the meditation, I also made a Spanish version. I did my best in my broken Spanish. I'm half Mexican. I could speak okay. And then I had some native speakers help me, my dad and a couple others, from Mexico, El Salvador. They did some final edits. And so there's also Niño Consciente, which is the Spanish version of the first one. So I hope that helps, Gina. Sorry, long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? It's easy to get caught in timelessness, and, answering one question really branches off too, right? And so I love and appreciate that. Thank you for that. So my old matrix, those of you who are not familiar with me, I was a public school teacher, and I was very passionate working for the union. And I was a minority voice advocating that social emotional learning needed to be a priority in public education. So we weren't allowed to teach the children things like meditation because that was considered spiritualism. And because it's public education, we're not allowed, right? But behind the scenes, my colleagues and I would talk about spiritualism, and we would beg the question, how do we transform spiritualism into a public lens? And so mindfulness became the punchline, the key word, if you will. So taking that moment to breathe. And there's actually science and lots of research that supports this, because when the amygdala is relaxed, this little almond piece in your brain, that's when you can really start to pay attention. Because if you're stressed out, the amygdala, it's like a tunnel that flows to it. It gets all tight. So anything that wants to go into your short-term memory, forget it. Well, if it's not going to the short term, how's it going to go to the long term, right? So if we can create the conditions like Laura's doing with her own children, creating the social emotional environment where it's prioritized, what ends up happening is your amygdala gets nice and relaxed. Information gets to the short-term memory. Information can then pass to the long-term memory. So yeah, okay, it's good for learning, but the whole point is once it gets to the long-term memory, it starts to transition into a way of knowing. So this is what I call the notice, nurture, nature cycle. I didn't invent it. I don't know who did, but the 3 N's, notice, nurture, nature. And that's everything that I'm thinking about when you're talking. I don't teach anymore, but if I did, I would probably be advocating to read books like Laura's to my class, even though it's a public education lens, because even though it's called meditation, we can talk about it like the overall themes I feel are important. And you know what? I think we got to get over language like meditation. and I'm just kind of ranting now because I'm public. I was passionate about being a public school teacher. But another question for you, Laura. This business of base 10 and base 12, that caught my attention because when you say base 10, I think about these orange plastic math blocks called base 10, and we use them to count by ones. And then when we get 10 ones, well, now it gets a stick, and the stick is 10. And this is good to help children count by tens. When we get 10 tens, ooh, now we get the big 100 square, and then we count by 100s. When we get 100 100s, whoa, now we get the big cube, and we're counting by thousands. Mm-hmm. And so I don't understand base 10, base 12, but are you talking about like a 12-month cycle and like 12 months of the year? I don't understand base 10, base 12. What does that mean? Is that special accounting language?
I don't know if it's special. It's basically what you described with counting by tens. And yeah, yes, on the fundamental level, it is counting by tens because we all grew up, especially in the United States. I can't speak for Mexico. My dad's from Mexico. I can't speak for any other country. And now they have Common Core math here in Florida. We don't. It's not like California, as far as I know. And so, but tens. Everything was tens. We counted in tens. We memorized in tens, and it was just a nice even number that we could just count by. I don't know why it was chosen. I don't know the history of 10 base math. That is what it is. However, I heard on a channel called Cosmic Agency that is Pleiadians, not channeled. It's said to be actual discussions with them directly, technology-wise. And they said that based on technologies and things that work, because 10 base math is used for technologies on Earth and whatnot, this version of Earth, that 12 base math is more accurate. So then you're talking counting by 12s. And they said that this coincides with the dodecahedron, or however you say that, the decahedron shape of the Earth, because the Earth is a 12th dimensional being, and the 12ness goes better. Yes, it can coincide, especially if you hear Robert Edward Grant talking about how these numbers relate with 12 months out of the year, even though the moon cycle, 28 days, is way more accurate. I believe that's 360 days a year. And calendars like Mayan and Aztec calendars are more accurate because they go along in those cycles that are more of the moon cycles and very accurate. But yes, it is on a basic fundamental level, counting by 12 instead of 10. And is it better because you're counting a little bit higher? Not necessarily. It seems to be better for technology, though. And so can I answer that fully? I don't know, unless I come up with an invention that uses 12 base math instead of like a free energy device, which is something in my dreams, to do a free energy device. If it's using 12 base math, great. I would love to do a free energy device or a replicator device that can replicate food for free, for example, for anyone, and that kind of thing. It would be cool to see if a device like that does use 12 base math versus 10 base math, because then we could say, hey, Pleiadians, you're right about that.
Yeah, I'm sure the Pleiadians would like to know that too. That's very fascinating because I think the same thing. Like 10 is just a nice, good, easy number to work with. I think about things like the number 12, the 12 disciples. Back in the day, 12 was a powerful number. But then I also think about the 12 constellations, 12 months in the year. And then I remind myself, oh yeah, there's actually 13 constellations. There's actually 13 months in the year. And so and then like the Mayan calendar, like there's so many calendars at hand that in itself is a full disclosure. We only know what's been presented to us. How many other calendars, how many other mathematical equations are out there that we're not even aware of? And knowledge is power. So it's very empowering for people who might not be aware of this to be hearing it for the first time right here. So we're going to take a break in about 5 minutes. If anybody has any burning questions for Laura, put them in the chat. I noticed Laura's been keeping an eye on the chat there, but Michael had a question here. What was it like for you meeting the beings you channel for the first time? How did it impact you to see we are not alone?
I didn't believe it. I'm like, why am I hearing voices in my head that aren't mine? I've never been diagnosed with anything, and I and I'm not a doctor giving medical advice. However, I've also told people just because you were told you were diagnosed with something doesn't mean you really have it, especially if it's mental or emotional. This is very hard to prove because that's just straight energy. Okay. So, I think about that. You have PTSD, you're depressed, you're anxiety, and you don't have to be that way in every moment to moment. But anyways, Michael, I didn't believe it. And I was like, because the mental health thing does come to mind. And I'm like, it's like 3 a.m. and I get up, go use the bathroom, whatever. And then all of a sudden I just hear a male, this is Archangel Sandalphon, and Sandalphon is an angel. Da, da, da. And I'm like, Sandalphon, who's that? I'm like, that's an obscure angel. Like, I'm going to make it up. It's going to be Archangel Michael, right? So, I want it to be the quote unquote old one. And I look it up and it's like, Sandalphon is the angel of prayers and the angel of music. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That's like 2022 or 2023. And that's really how it started. And then I started binge listening to Bashar and, basically hearing that it's all our higher self. It's all source. Sometimes it can be our spirit guides. Other times it's just our higher self. Other times it's other versions of us, which we are all really other versions of us. But, then you have a soul family where it's a closer version where you're under the same soul group and same oversoul, what they call umbrella of souls. And so that's just kind of how it affected me. Now I just take it verbatim. So if it comes through saying, I'm an ant person, say this, it's more like I am on the other side of the room and the ant person, which is another version of me, is here and speaking. And so it's really odd because yes, I can hear it, but it says, let it flow out naturally. Even if it says something that might sound quote unquote crazy, now I just let it out. And so it took me accepting that, no, it's not crazy. All perspectives are valid. So speak your truth.
Yes, all perspectives are valid. Speak your truth. Wow, that was a really great presentation, Laura. The music sound healing was nice too. Sometimes the forks in and out faded, but overall we were able to hear you and it was peaceful. So I didn't interrupt. That was really great. And a really powerful presentation too, reiterating the social emotional, the importance of the mental health stigmas that come with spiritual awakenings, and the reiterating that you're not alone, and to trust the synchronicities, to trust the bigger process in life that we live in. So thank you so much, Laura, for presenting today and for sharing your story medicine. I really appreciate it. It was a thrill to have you here. And I'm really delighted that you were able to join us. Somebody had to be first, so it was Laura. And Laura had to double time providing music and providing the presentation. So Laura, thank you so much. I'm going to remove you from the stage now. If you want to hang out with us in behind the scenes
Tina.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much, Laura. Lorga Ferguson, people, Starseed Lolo, and I'm looking forward to playing the movies too at the end, schedule-wise. So we're going to have a break in just a moment. This is the part of the show now where we just do any chat check-ins. I see everybody's enjoying Lorga's presentation. Lots of thank yous to Laura. Missy Hill's got some sourdough in the oven. I'm super jealous. Somehow send me a slice of that bread when it's done, okay? So if anybody has anything burning to say, let us know in the chat. This is a good time to do that. I did make a switcheroo to the schedule. Don't worry, the presenters' times are still the same. But I'm going to